with no spoilers, I would love to know about your experience shooting The Last of Us. How is that? What is your approach? How's the experience been so far? What can you tell us?
Basically, this is a dream job. I love the games, and I wrote to my agent maybe 4 years ago and said, you know, if there's any way I can meet on The Last of Us, you know, Chernobyl for me is a masterpiece, and The Last of Us is a masterpiece, and Craig Mazin doing The Last of Us is just a dream. So long story short, I got the job somehow, and here I am. And the thing that's really remarkable about this job is the scripts. I've never known scripts this detailed and this brilliant. They're just remarkable. You read them and it's just incredible. Like, they're just brilliant. They make you cry. Everything is there. They're this real, I don't know how he's done it, but there's so much detail. I've lived with these scripts for about 1.5 years now, and I'm still discovering things in them. You know, we'll be on set and we'll be dealing with whatever, and we'll go, what's the answer here? And the answer is always in the script. And what that made me realize is my whole career to this point has been fixing scripts, has been taking a story that has interesting ideas and maybe is even good, but not great. And quite often I'm trying to elevate it. Me and the director are going, how do we make this better? Night Teeth, very much that, you know, but it was offered to us. This is a Netflix original with a good budget, shooting in America. There's no way we're going to turn it down and sort of be snobby and say it's vampires and not the greatest script. What we decided to do was, how do we elevate this? How do we make this something? And so we really sort of threw everything at Night Teeth and really just did, you know, every little trick in the book to try and make it the best it could be. With The Last of Us, it's a lot more, I need to just stay the hell out of the way. I just need to tell this. I just need to observe, you know, because the performances are so good and the writing is so good, and the art department are just doing miracles. I mean, I just can't wait for people to see what the art department have done. For me now, it's all about naturalism on The Last of Us. I'm doing as little as possible. I'm just trying to motivate. I'm trying to motivate the real world. I'm trying to make it feel as real as possible. Give it that sort of cinematic naturalism. So I'm kind of trying to Rembrandt a lot of rooms. I'm just saying, okay, light's coming through the windows and nowhere else. And sometimes someone's going to be dark, and sometimes someone's going to be bright, and that's life, and it's beautiful. So I'm trying to light through windows exclusively, like practicals and windows only, and I'm trying to never put a light on the floor. That's just a bit of a sort of personal challenge on The Last of Us that I think makes a lot of sense. With Craig, nothing can ever be too dark, so he's not a showrunner who's scared of, oh, but are they too dark? For him, it's all about reality. Okay, we're down in a train tunnel and they have torches, so we're not going to have a bright light backlight coming around the corner, because what is that light? Where's it coming from? He's very sort of cynical about film lighting. So if ever anything looks too lit or even looks too good, he wants to unpick why. So it's a kind of less is more naturalistic approach, and it's much more about figuring out, okay, how do we control, what's the thing that we can control to make this look interesting? So quite often it's time of day or weather. So what if this was a sort of stormy evening and we had a kind of weird purple sunlight coming through windows, and we have loads of trees moving and there's a hole in the ceiling? So what if we had some weeds coming down and they're blowing around, and that just gives it an atmosphere. So quite often, you know, the cinematography is talking about an atmosphere and talking about how do we bend reality to make this a thing. And so, yeah, it's a really, like, just a privilege to be on this. It's remarkable. I saw the first cut, the director's cut of one of my episodes. Yes, when was that? Friday. And it's the most moving. I've never seen something I've worked on that's that good. And it was so, I don't know, it was just a sort of mind-blowing experience. So basically I'm hyping this up about as much as humanly possible. And I put all that credit to Craig Mazin, who I've never known a smarter, better writer. He's just a miraculous guy. He's got the answer for everything. He's a genius, you know, he's just got that thing. And so, yeah, we're just trying to do it justice. We're just trying to kind of keep up with Craig Mazin and service the scripts as they deserve to be. Yeah. Hype.
Well, it's working. I'm very excited. I think I've never met a person who didn't enjoy it, who's played Last of Us and didn't enjoy that game. I think it's one
Yep.
of those rare games that
Mm.
bridges universally. You know,
Yep.
even though it's for many reasons, but it's also got a very distinctive visual style. Do you take any
Yep.
of that as inspiration for what you're doing?
A little bit, yeah.
I also need to ask, why are you challenging yourself not to light from the floor?
Yeah, interesting. So
Sorry?
I loved this.
Am I gone again?
I loved your video's gone, but I can hear you, so that's okay. There you go. I loved how the games looked. I think particularly The Last of Us 2 was some of the best sort of digital cinematography I've seen. And I think that comes from reality. I think what The Last of Us did so well is to work backwards from reality and to motivate light and color and sources all based on the real world, and to not cheat, you know, to not give yourself the easy out, the film lighting that always see people clearly. It played with shadows a lot, it played with darkness, and it always felt grounded in reality. And Craig said something really interesting to me that really just stuck with me. He was like, when we were talking about what The Last of Us, the TV show, should look like, he was like, he just said to me, you know what it looks like. You can picture it. We all can. We know what The Last of Us is. So it's just about being truthful to that and honoring that and not trying to change it, not doing anything too provocative. You know, if I was doing this whole thing using movie backlight and loads of smoke and it was all on dolly and track, it would be a bit like, what's that? That's not The Last of Us. You know, The Last of Us has a kind of culture already. And so we're shooting it 100% handheld, which is a really interesting thing. That feels very human. It feels very visceral with the characters, and it makes a lot of sense. And as soon as you sort of put it on a track, as soon as occasionally we flirt with the idea of a shot that isn't handheld, and straight away it just feels wrong, you know? So that has meant I've got to be, or me and the directors have to be very creative with blocking. We have to make sure it just doesn't feel like a documentary, doesn't feel thoughtless. There always has to be a thought behind. You know, handheld, you can do tons of amazing stuff with handheld. I looked at the Dardenne brothers and what they've done with handheld operating and how they block scenes, and they've just got this wonderful way of moving people around a room, motivated. You know, you're basically editing in camera in the way the Dardenne brothers shoot, and we've tried to bring some of that to The Last of Us. So, you know, we'll follow over the shoulder, we'll turn that into an over onto Ellie. Ellie's going to cross the other side of the room. We turn back onto Joel. You know, we're always just looking for ways to motivate and hide movement and keep it interesting and keep shots being shots and it not just be generic coverage. We're never just saying, okay, it's handheld, start on a wide, go to a mid, go to a close. We're just not doing that at all. We're saying, what's the story here? Whose perspective are we with? Are we close to characters? Are we far away? Are we listening through a window? Are we right on their shoulder? And we're really just sort of trying to think about where the story is, because we just want the camera to be where the story is, you know? And in terms of the lighting, I just think that if you're putting a lamp on the floor, which I do all the time in other stuff, in Night Thief, it's in every shot almost, you know, but you're cheating, you know? What you're doing is you're putting light on an actor that wouldn't have been there without it being there. So what you're doing is sort of you're increasing the glossiness, you're increasing the sometimes it being stylized, you know? That's what lighting on the floor is. If you're lighting a room, if you're lighting a space, not a face, you are creating an atmosphere for the room, and then the actors are just going to exist inside it, and there are going to be flaws, there are going to be mistakes, there are going to be imperfections, but it's always going to feel grounded in its own reality, and it's going to have that slightly more naturalistic feel. And that's just what, to us, that's what The Last of Us is. And as soon as we're sort of cheating, as soon as we're making things look nicer, we're breaking that kind of trust in the reality of a location. So I learned on a completely different thing stylistically. I did Avenue 5 for Armando Iannucci and HBO, and that being comedy set in space, I had to light rooms so that I could cross shoot and we could get 4 cameras going at the same time. So on that, I learned a lot about how to light a room so that people's faces are going to look reasonably good, even on the wide shots, and then moving in without any tweaks. So on The Last of Us, I've sort of taken that forwards and committed to, you know, like I can look at the blocking of a scene and I can see, okay, the actors are going to they're going to originate around this area. So if I have the sun coming in on this angle, it's going to bounce into the floor or bounce into the wall, and the wall or the floor are suddenly going to become the source. So I've got the hard light coming in through the window, it's hitting a wall, that wall is then becoming a soft light. So there are lots of kind of tricks and ways I can manipulate lighting through a window to light the whole scene. I'm not just sort of saying, okay, it's daylight, let's just have some light coming through the windows and let's just shoot it. We're not doing that. We're saying, okay, this scene is daylight, this is what's going to happen. We'll see the rehearsal, we see where the actors are, and then I'm finding the way to light that daylight scene so that it works for all of the shots. So we know when we come to Ellie's close-up, she's going to be backlit, and when we're on Joel, he's going to be front lit. And, you know, all of those things are sort of being discussed and thought through. So it's just a bit of a puzzle. It's a bit of a kind of high concept. It's a bit of a kind of game. I'm not doing it just to sort of show off. I think, like, I can think of one scene. Did I put a light in? I think, yeah, there's maybe one scene I've done where I had like an Astera tube on a poly on the floor, just to give Ellie this tiny little eye light. I had it on at like 1%, but we were so dark, so backlit, and her torch wasn't really doing what I needed. So I just had to put this tiny eye light in, but it had to be invisible. You know, if it had been up at 5%, it would have looked fake and wrong for this project. So it's just, yeah, it's just kind of grown out of what we think the project is. I mean, Craig is a very detailed showrunner. You know, he will say to me, that looks too lit, or that looks fake, or that looks, you know, he'll just come and say, he's got a great eye and he'll say things. And quite often what he wants me to do is do less, is to just pull things back and make them a bit more naturalistic. So yeah.
That approach to me sounds perfect, and I'm even more excited than I was. And I was pretty excited for this, I'll be honest.
Yeah.